this Bible, this handbook, is the source of truth. To your point around like terms and terminology and definitions, like you need something that unites the team, that speaks the same language, that gets them philosophically united, down to the tactical ways we're united.
From my view, like the CEO is the keeper of the story. Like whether they're the founder or not, they have to be the one that forcing and telling and teaching the company narrative.
United, like to me, means that everybody is looking ultimately at the same goal. It's essentially one goal. Like it's one roll-up KPI that you're looking at saying we are all trying to build toward that thing.
Real talk backed up with real action. This is GTM News Desk.
I'm Rachel Eltz Downey.
And I'm Mark Hillens.
Let's see what's trending.
What's up, friends? Welcome to another GTM News Desk. Mark Hillens is with you here today, along with Rachel. Second episode. She's almost
He can't say my last name.
What's that?
He can't say my last name. That's why he doesn't say the full
Rachel
thing.
Downey?
Rachel Eltz Downey is my name.
Oh. I thought that was your middle name. I didn't know that was your
Why
part
would
of
I
your
put
last
my
name.
middle name on all my stuff?
I thought that was your MO. I thought that was like you just, anyway.
And by the way, what kind of middle name is Eltz?
It's very unique. I like it.
Okay. All right. Sorry, Mark. Go ahead.
No.
Do your thing.
Let's get right into it. I'm trying to keep it casual. Okay. We have a great show for you folks today. It's all about getting united, not aligned. I hate the term alignment. Imagine if it was called the Alignment States of America. It's like terrible.
I can't. Aligned States of America is how you would say that, but
okay, that's fair. You got me on that one. Still pretty bad. ASM. No, I messed that up too.
ASA.
That's
right.
USA. Anyway, segment number 1, Pavilion. I'm sure lots of folks listening, Pavilion members. I was a longtime member, had to give it up just because I got way too busy over the last year or so. But Pavilion's awesome. They do a lot of good research. They had this report, Rachel, that came out recently. It's in the show notes, all about the future of revenue. And they interviewed 400 GTM leaders across different functions within a company. Lots to unpack. We're going to have Josh, the CRO of Quickbase, an old friend of mine from my days at Drift, on, a Boston-based go-to-market pro soon. So we picked this story, and I know you have a great story coming up right after this that ties into this around the report finding alignment is important. They use the term align, Rachel. it's fine. But what they found was aligned teams, and they don't exactly tell you how to align. They give you kind of some surface level stuff. That's why we had Josh on to kind of break this down, are going to be much more efficient at generating revenue and retaining customers, which we've all heard so much about. But
literally, I love that you found the story. I love that you're sharing this data. But the thing that drives me nuts is I'm like, why have we needed a survey to tell us the most obvious thing in the universe?
We'll leave it at that.
You can continue.
No, that was perfect. We'll just leave it at that. Because we've had how many of these surveys? How many? There's some interesting stats. I'm not giving shade to Pavilion. There's some interesting stuff. There's some interesting insights and some ideas. Check it out. But no, we do not need this survey question anymore. How aligned are your teams? And another question, how united are your teams? That would be interesting to ask those two questions to the same population in a survey, Rachel.
It's a better question because the outcome gives you information that you can actually then apply to your organization. Because the survey of, essentially asking how you're going to grow revenue or whatever. And it comes back down to the simple thing of focusing on relationships and collaboration. And it's that's the most human thing that you can do. And it's the most human way that we've survived since the beginning of our species. It's the entire way that we've lived is by building community and collaboration with people so that we literally live. And it is all based on relationships, creating connection, and then doing things together. And so that's why I'm not throwing shade at Pavilion, never that, but just the fact that we have to still ask these questions when we know the answer. And then it's like, we have to find all this data to support the fact that that's what we believe. And it's like, but that is literally, it's been the same since the beginning of time. I think we've just overcomplicated it in our business settings. And I think this conversation with Josh, to me, is very eye-opening in the sense that he helped create simplicity in a sea of a whole bunch of nuance when it comes to your go-to-market. And I love that the survey came out because it's giving us this opportunity to kind of tee this up. But I find that interesting that we're still asking questions that we've had the answers for our entire humankind.
Goes back to people first GTM, relationships and partnerships plus storytelling, the three things that are the bedrock of people first GTM, both inside your company and outside. You have to form the relationships, establish the partnership, nurture the partnership, and tell the right stories, right? That is people first GTM. That's what we need to move more and more in that direction. So segment number 2, though, this is a good one.
Segment number 2, this is our nobody in B2B wants this. And so this came to me because in one of our last recordings, Mark had a moment where he was hating on a buzzword, and everyone already knows what the buzzword is because he said it about 100 times. And if you're a drinking person and drinking, you would be having to start a shot game at this point. But the word is alignment. So he talked about this in our conversation with Kirsty O'Sullivan from ZoomInfo and talking about his definition of alignment and how he's done with it. And he only wants to talk about United. And so it got me thinking about other buzzwords that as B2B folks, we need to retire because they're annoying or they don't actually tell the full story. And so the words that I came up with that I feel like I'm done listening to are synergy, pivot. Although pivot's fun because you can put the Ross Geller, GIF with it. Synergy, pivot, and disruption. Those are the 3 that have come to my mind where I'm if I hear these one more time, I'm going to lose it. And I am not alone in this hate towards the word synergy. Speaking of surveys, there was a LinkedIn poll that was conducted in 2025 and 41% of the votes went towards synergy. And then the other terms that came up in that was elevate, leverage, and utilize. But it was a widespread discussion that was sparked among marketers for the need for clear and more authentic language and B2B over communication. So those were my 3 that I am hating on. What words come to mind for you?
Oh man, those are some good ones. I just hate this phrase, honestly. Just take it offline. Just
You're also, I'm not going to take it offline because we conduct business online. Yeah. So even if it's going offline, we're actually staying online.
It's so bad. No, those are all good. This is actually a great point when it comes to uniting your go-to-market teams. A tactical thing you should all do is build your GTM Bible. Basically the book that has all of the definitions, all of the terms, all of the process. We're going to talk about this with Josh coming up. All of the things that your RevOps team does, your marketing team, your sales team, whomever is involved in your go-to-market side, CX, CS, obviously. And this Bible, this handbook, is the source of truth. To your point around terms and terminology and definitions, you need something that unites the team, that speaks the same language, that gets them philosophically united, down to the tactical ways we're united as well. So that's just something that comes to mind as you kind of just explain these buzz terms, which is so true. There's too many, way too many.
Well, it's funny. I love that idea of sort of creating your go-to-market source of truth or your go-to-market Bible or whatever, go-to-market glossary, whatever, because we are in such a interesting time in the sense that we're all adopting new technology, we're adopting new terminology, we're applying new things that honestly really should be based on first principles, but we're all acting like it's novel and new. And so I think if we're going to act like it's all novel and new, then we need to define it for our organizations so that we do have shared language across the company, even just from a confidence perspective. Because if you define people first differently than I do in my organization, and we need to define it the same way, you and I could be having 2 separate understandings of our conversation because we have 2 definitions for the same word. So I love that idea. A word that kind of came up in this research of what are the B2B buzzwords that people are done with? Innovation is one of them. Disruption is one of them. And I think you see that in the age of AI. And so many people are letting AI create all of their content for them. And so AI is going to say things like disruption and innovation and all of this stuff that's becomes so overused that it actually loses the authenticity and the power of those words. So Yeah.
What you just gave me two more before you transition to the segment. One's an acronym. AI is a buzzword.
It is. I mean, honestly.
And
we
then,
should like
and then the
name
other
a
one,
child that.
Yeah. Yes. And then the other one, you just said it, and I do not like this word either. Begins with A, authenticity.
Okay, but that's a word that I will stand for forever because authenticity cannot be fabricated. And so now people may be abusing the word and saying that their brand is authentic or that they are authentic when in fact they are not. That is a misuse. But being authentic as a brand and as a human being is essential if you want to last.
100% right. You got me there. 100%.
Okay, we're keeping authentic and I have adopted United. Fair?
Consider it done.
Okay, to Josh.
To Josh, let's go. What's up? Welcome to segment number 3. Have an old friend, Mr. Josh Allen, with us today. The quarterback, of course.
As a New England Patriots fan, you have no idea how many times I hear that.
Rachel, what is your favorite football team? Do you like football?
Well, I was just getting ready to say, we love to hate the Patriots. I'm a Colts gal because I'm here in Indianapolis, so can't be doing it. I'm sorry. I can't like share stats, but I can share hate. How does that work?
Well, neither team has been very good lately, so we both have we can both wallow here.
Well, folks, if you listen to the first 2 segments in today's episode, I'm extremely passionate about uniting go-to-market teams. Rachel, made fun of me a little bit. It's acceptable. I hate the term alignment, Josh. Aligning teams. It's so overdone, so overused. Align, and then we never align. What's better than aligning? I thought, hey, why not unite? United States of America, everyone likes to be united. So anyway, that is why we're talking to Josh today. Josh, do a quick intro for everyone though. So people get to know you a bit. You've been a go-to-market for a long, long time. Love to have everyone get to know you a bit.
So Josh Allen, I'm currently Chief Revenue Officer at Quickbase, which is a business that's been around in the no-code, low-code space for the last 25 or so years, running a sales team here of about 160 people across SDRs, quota carriers, solutions consultants, really focused on kind of rebuilding our sales motion here. But I've been fortunate that I was at LogMeIn for 10 years of my career and saw that business go from a $3 million startup trying to figure out who they wanted to be when they grew up into a pretty significant sized company after the merger with GoTo. Mark and I worked together at Drift. I helped build our sales team at CarGurus, where we took the company public in 2017. So I've tried to be close to actually Boston tech companies, not by design. It just so happens that being born and raised in Boston, apparently I've been attracted to Boston-based companies and trying to help build real sales teams that are genuinely interconnected with the rest of go-to-market, trying to work together and doing so with the customer journey as our compass for building the right type of motion.
Love it. We had some good times at Drift. Maybe we get to that throughout the conversation today. To kick us off, what's number 1, number 2, number 3 in your mind, Josh, that are the reasons we can't get united? Like, what's preventing us from being united? And how would you even think about defining united versus aligned, maybe? Just in your mind.
United, to me, means that everybody is looking ultimately at the same goal. It's essentially one goal. It's one roll-up KPI that you're looking at saying we are all trying to build toward that thing. For some companies, it's revenue. For other companies, it's net dollar retention. For some businesses, it's going to be EBIT if you're in private equity, and that's the price. So it's it can be a number of different things that you're ultimately trying to solve for. But I think the problem that we run into is that you see too many disconnected goals. So even if someone thinks that they're building, and the most common one that comes up between sales and marketing is a pipeline goal that lives in marketing and then a bookings goal that lives in sales, and one is green and one is red. There's just not enough integration between the models to be able to say, if we hit our pipeline target, we should also hit our bookings goal. And you run into trouble, I think, within the culture of a go-to-market team if somebody's showing up claiming victory when the other team is falling on their face. So to me, it's number one is if you have disconnected goals and those things aren't kind of tethered together. The second piece that I'd say is when one of the legs in the stool is longer than the other. So like you run into situations where you hear companies like describe themselves as like sales led, product led, marketing led. When there's a dominant leg in the stool, it often means that the others get sort of put behind. And as a result, they feel like they don't actually have to carry the water at the same rate as whatever the lead horse is. And that you can run into situations where it's like you find yourself 5 years into a journey, 10 years into a journey. And if it was a sales-led motion and suddenly like product is way behind because we weren't innovating because we just expected like the sales team to run through the wall, or it's a marketing-led motion that has been driving in this beautiful inbound lead engine, and then suddenly ChatGPT and everything shows up on the market and blows up the algorithms in Google for how you're driving traffic. And now it's too expensive to be able to run the same pay-per-click campaigns to drive it. It's like the best motions I've been a part of are the ones where the legs of the stool were pretty equal in terms of sharing the urgency and responsibility for the go-to-market and trying to solve that ultimate KPI of revenue growth. I think the third one, Mark, that kind of gets in the way here is what I would classify as the sugar highs. It's like the short-term sugar highs that companies, especially in sales, actually, like sales teams can get addicted to, where you find this play that you're running just to be able to fill the gap in a quarter or to fill the gap in a half, but they're not long-term sustainable. Or in some cases, they do more damage to your customer base because you're forcing them into an upgrade that they weren't necessarily ready for. And you end up kind of holding the customer hostage to be able to extract the dollars. And then upon renewal in the next cycle, they go somewhere else. They go with a competitor because you kind of held their feet to the fire. So like to me, those three things are the reason, like the top three reasons that I see where you don't have that unified approach.
I'd love to jump in and just ask a couple questions here because I feel like we're talking about a problem that's as old as time, right? Like, how do we get marketing and sales united, whatever? So that feels like, it's 2025 and it's like, why aren't we there yet? And then the second thing that's interesting to me, and excuse my ignorance on this potentially, but oftentimes when we're talking to companies, we're asking the question, like, what is your primary go-to-market motion? And based on what I'm hearing you say, potentially, like, maybe that's not even a good question to ask. And like, the question is, what are your go-to-market motions? And how do you keep them aligned across or united across the company? Like, I'm just curious, Josh, from your experience, are we asking the wrong question when we ask, what is your primary go-to-market motion?
I don't think you're asking the wrong question. There's always going to be a lead horse, but it has to be defined by the customer journey itself. So what I mean by that is if you have a business that is predominantly PLG, and they show up and the website is the product, like you can sign up for a free trial, you can start to use it. Then when you're making changes to improve the conversion rate throughout the course of the trial or through the funnel, that's going to be concentrated in product. And then the second most important part of that from a go-to-market standpoint is probably marketing, because you have to drive people to the website to convert in the product that they're going to use. And then it's sales, because the sales team is going to be built based on how much demand marketing is able to generate and how many people are converting through the product lifecycle. So all three of those are important and they all matter. But when one is purely dominant, then the other teams tend to atrophy because they haven't been held to that same standard of expectations. It's like, oh no, like our product team has just built a great product. Like you look at like Loom for video, for example. Great product, incredibly intuitive, very easy to use. Like they changed the way video was done, but they were using a marketing motion to drive people into that product. And then came the sales motion that they hired later on to be able to handle all the marketing inbound that was led by product. So it was always sort of product led, but that was based on what they built as a solution for their customers. So the customer journey was meant to be, I show up, I do my first video, and then a lot of my interaction is in the product. And if I'm a head of sales and I want this for my team, then ultimately I'm going to interface with the sales team. But they built it in a way that was kind of following the customer journey. So again, it's not that I don't think you're asking the wrong question, Rachel. I think it's really understanding what is the intention, what problem are you trying to solve for your customer, and how do you expect them to experience the solution that your business offers?
And then essentially what you're saying is then test your hypothesis against what they're actually doing and edit based on that.
And hold the other teams, the other functions that are a part of that process to the same standard that you would hold the lead horse to. And that, yeah, if product continues to make advancements in conversion rate optimization within the product, within the trial experience, I'm expecting my sales team to also have a standard related to their process and their ability to improve win rates and raise ASP, move deals through the funnel, through the pipeline. So it's not just always letting that lead horse that has kind of always been there be the one that runs and carries all the weight.
Yeah. So, and Mark, I'll jump in. I just want to make sure, or let you jump in. I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying, Josh, because what I'm hearing you say is like, you make a decision, but the hierarchy really shouldn't be crippling the rest of the organization. And to stay united, you have to be on the same page of what you all are trying to accomplish, even if the decision is that this is our primary motion, but we're all together as a team and we're all held accountable across the company.
And then if you're in the CEO seat, it's your responsibility to make sure that the urgency and the accountability is shared among each of the groups. So again, even if like in that example I gave, like product is the lead horse, that's okay. But you need to expect that your marketing org, that your customer success org, that your sales org are also going to have a bar of excellence that's pretty high that matches what's being done on the product side. So it's not all just dependent on your product and engineering teams to continue to build great things.
Well, this is a great segue into the next question. Who owns GTM in your mind, Josh? And like, what should they be doing? Like the owner?
I think it has to be your CEO, because it's like, this is ultimately what you're signing up for is the experience that your customer has with your company. And if you were to just put that on a CMO or a CRO or even a chief customer officer, you're always going to have like these kind of individual ownership buckets. CEO ultimately owns the experience of the customer all the way through. So because go-to-market is really, it's the customer's journey through the whole process from the time they interact with you, whether it's on a website, at a trade show, seeing a commercial, all the way through their buying cycle, their experience, their user cycle as a customer, their add-on cycle, their renewal cycle. If they leave you and go do something else, all of that kind of comes back to what are the decisions that the CEO is helping to make with their team in place to influence that customer's experience along the way. I think it has to be.
We talk about people first go to market, which is defined from our point of view as you got to match your go to market to how people like to buy today. And that's basically, I think, what you just said. Would you agree? Or am I missing something?
I agree with that completely. I think you need to meet the buyers where they are, not the other way around. They're not going to come meet you. If you're waiting for them to come meet you where you are, you're going to miss out on a very large portion of the market.
Well, and to that end too, like I think the way that I internalize a lot of this is like, it should be the CEO because from my view, like the CEO is the keeper of the story. Like whether the founder or not, they have to be the one that's like enforcing and telling and teaching the company narrative. And so I'm like, it makes no sense to me that somebody else would own the go-to-market. Yeah, there's people that help shape the story. There's people who help activate and all that kind of thing. But like at the end of the day, you do look to your CEO to say, where are we going? Like, what's the ship and how did we get here? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And if your corporate narrative isn't where you need it to be, which you can see evidence of when, like if you walk into a business and you ask the SDRs or the salespeople, hey, like, what's your product do? What problem do you solve? And you ask 10 people and you get 10 sort of different answers, you probably have a corporate narrative problem. And so sometimes as CEO, it's actually being able to pull the team together, the squad together, or the external people you need together to be able to rebuild that corporate narrative if it's not landing with your own team. Because if it doesn't land with your own team, it's not going to land with a customer or a potential customer. It's really hard to make that happen. So yeah, I do think ultimately the CEO does the job of building the team around them who they think can help own the individual functions that help kind of solve that overall problem.
There's a use case that I've heard recently that I'd be curious your guys' take on this. I don't know if you're familiar with the company Raycast.
No.
It's pretty much more in like the engineer, like developer world, but they don't even have a sales team. They have a hype team. And I find that so interesting because if we talk about like people first, and obviously, Mark, you have your definition of people first, and I could have my own definition technically of people first, but just that idea of like, if you have a hype team, it just like hits different when you're even having like a early conversation. Like, we get to sell this thing. We're this hyped about it. Like, I'm curious your two take on like if you would be approached, how you would handle like being approached by a hype team as opposed to like a sales team or like sales title.
I don't know. I'm picturing people like standing outside of like, well, we're Boston based, so the TD Garden or Fenway Park, and either like spinning signs or playing music and loud alarms and getting people fired up before a game. That's fascinating. That's the first time I've heard of that. I think if there was steak behind the sizzle, then that would make it work. Yeah. Because ultimately it all comes down to, does the product do what you said it was going to do in terms of solving my problem? And is it doing it in the way you said it was going to do it? If that's the case, yeah, I think there's a lot of different options that work. And then there's also like, there's the famous example of Atlassian, who for years, I think they grew to 100 million without a sales team, and then realized that in order to take the next step, there's a group of customers who aren't going to buy if they don't have the chance to be able to interact, or they're not going to be able to buy at a certain enterprise level if they aren't able to interact with either a more traditional like enterprise buying experience. And so there's room for all different types of motions, I think, as companies continue to grow and scale and get bigger. But that's kind of a cool way to hype the hype team. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's definitely like a positioning, maybe messaging exercise. We did this at HubSpot. We called our salespeople inbound marketing specialists. I mean, it's a consultative sales process with a little bit of challenger sale involved, whatever. And then, the classic example right now is Clay. And I'm going to ask you one more question, Josh, before we get to the good stuff, which is going to be the transition question, because I'm going to ask you about some examples of good and bad united go-to-market. But before I do that, I'll just mention Clay again, because Clay now calls their salespeople, and a lot of it, though, from Clay's standpoint, is PLG. It's actually hard to talk to their salespeople, which are called growth engineers, which they've actually extended into the ecosystem through their partner network that they've built. Very interesting business for many reasons. They just did a tender offer because they raised some more money with Sequoia, and they asked their employees, I think it's Area C now, to exit if they want to sell some of their shares. And they actually want to try to do that every year now as well. I say all this because there's now an emergence, I think, of different operating models coming out for all sides of a business: go-to-market, finance, right, capital allocation, etc. So from your standpoint, though, going back to the go-to-market question I had around examples, you don't have to name any companies. You've advised a lot of companies. You're part of a lot of companies in the past. What is like one or two really good and really bad examples of a united go-to-market team? And then we can get into the good stuff in terms of like how you kind of unite your go-to-market teams and the exclusive content. But I just want to have you go back down history, if you will, a little bit and give us some examples.
Well, I am a proponent of bad news first, so let's start there. I think where it has fallen down was sort of what we were talking about before, when the goals between the teams are misaligned, or you have teams that they over-index on vanity metrics, so things that make them feel good. And sometimes that's a pipeline number. Sometimes it's a product usage number that you might feel good about, like whether it's your daily active users or monthly active users or whatever it is that makes you feel like, oh yeah, like we're making progress here, like we're moving this number. But again, ultimately, if the thing that the company is being measured on is bookings or revenue or EBIT, if those outcomes aren't moving, then the numbers that the teams are feeling really, really good about aren't moving that outcome, then you do have to kind of go back under the hood and say, all right, are we doing the right work there? Are we exerting our calories in the places that are having the biggest impact to help move the business forward? And I've seen that happen a couple of times. And it's like companies go through cycles too. Like it's very rare that a business just linearly continues to kind of chug along without having to go through this process at some point. People change, the market changes, competitive landscape changes, like it's a constantly moving dynamic. So, and then sometimes like what you built that was working great 2 or 3 years ago, like we can all look at great companies in 2021 and 2022. And then all of a sudden, second half of 2023 is like, whoa, what happened? Like this business was doing great. and now they're really struggling, or they just had a big layoff, or it seems like ChatGPT has totally flipped the market on its head in terms of what this company was doing before. So I think like the best companies are always the ones that can survive in advance. They can adjust to the market conditions that are on the field in front of them and do it with enough speed to be able to capture the market momentum that exists because of it. So it's just like, it's making sure that the goals and the things that you're working on and the way you're reading the runway that's directly in front of you is aligned as a team. I think you can do good things. So it probably feeds into the answer on like the good side. I will tell you the best I've ever seen it was, and I will name names because it was pretty awesome, was at CarGurus, where we were selling. Now you had the advantage there that it's a verticalized motion. You're selling to essentially the same buyer persona for all of your deals. You have a fenced in, serviceable, addressable market that you're going after and a really well-defined ideal customer profile. That's just like a marketer and seller's dream. And here are some like the underlying examples that supported it. Is the fastest ramp time in salespeople I've ever had anywhere. Like we could get somebody from 0 to fully productive rep in about 2.5 months. And it was because like the pitch was the same, the talk track was the same, the way we carved territories was pretty equal. So like we just sort of had this rinse and repeat process we could run of bringing somebody in the business, teaching them how to do it, and then seeing the outcomes very quickly on the backside of it. And so you just sort of had this fully integrated marketing team, sales team, and then we were very much product led in terms of how we drove that business. So product was kind of the tip of the spear for us, but we also set a high bar in terms of how our marketing and sales teams were there to support across the group. So we were able to go like super duper fast as a result.
Reminds me of HubSpot a little bit, and we're going to dive into this next. So I'm just going to tee it up for everyone. What you said is one of my beliefs, which is you got to get really tight and focused on the who and what types of businesses. If you can do that, and you can still have 3 or 4 segments, but each segment is very tight on that who and those types of businesses, and they have nuanced ways in which they acquire and retain and delight those customers in those segments. That is going to be one, I think, very tactical way to unite your go-to-market. And we'll talk more about that in the exclusive content right now. Thank you, Josh, for being a guest. Rachel, you never brought up
I was getting ready to.
Camp Drift. Okay.
You're segueing us out too fast.
All right. Okay. Go to the exclusive content. You can hear a story from Josh about Camp Drift and some fun there.
Which one? Which story?
I don't know. Maybe tell 2. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of GTM News Desk presented by TAC Insider. To dive into the exclusive content with our guest today, head to the link in the show notes to subscribe to TAC Insider. Until next time, I'm Mark Killens.
And I'm Rachel Eltz Downey. Let's keep it people first, everybody.